Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a little deep. It's a little sensitive, but it can be a very positive and insightful piece of advice if you take it, if you don't, if you whatever. Either way, we're gonna do this for my own understanding, for understanding of those who are around us. And yes, so per the title of this video, what is the difference between an addiction and something that is just, a pleasure? A little while back, I got a few people asking me about my last podcast slash whatever. It was on the cycle of addiction and what causes addiction, what propels it, what feeds an addiction, and what is the difference between something that can be, a regular pleasure or something that can destroy our life. Obviously, there are so many different angles to addiction, and so I can't really speak as a professional. I speak from my own experience, from learning from other people, learning from experts and stuff like that, and then just passing on the message. So when I was thinking about what I would say for this video and what would really make a difference, instead of just talking about addiction, talking about what causes it and stuff like that, but really make you question. I really hope that this video, if you deal with some sort of addiction, or if you are slowly becoming self-admittedly addicted to something, or if something has more power over you than you want it to in life, any sort of thing like that, I hope that these common points will help you understand your behaviors, understand the motivation behind those behaviors, and then maybe through that awareness, you can consciously choose what you would rather do instead, or if this is really a problem. Anyways, so the first thing that I want to say is that an addiction versus something that is a pleasure, something that is regular and it's not an addiction, it's just a simple pleasure in life, there is a difference between how it is charged. No matter what your addiction might be, whether it is drugs or alcohol or food or exercising or a substance or an activity of any sort, the difference between it being a regular pleasure for you and something that might actually be a problem is whether it is positively or negatively charged. If you feel like shit about it, or if you're banking on it, if there's any sort of negative feeling that arises when you're doing it, or you're doing it because you feel negative, or whatever it is, if it is positive, it's positive and you'll know it. You'll know that because you'll feel joy from it rather than a sense of dread or a sense of obligation or a sense of escapism. Whatever it is, if you are positively charged or negatively charged, that is the first distinction between something as a behavior, as an addiction, or as something that is a simple pleasure for you. Now, the second thing, like I said, how are you feeling before you go into it? If you feel down, depressed, angry, boredom is another form of escaping. If you're in any way, shape, or form feeling down, if you're feeling out of control, or whatever it is, that is your first distinction between something that you're doing out of addictive behaviors, out of avoidance, out of whatever, and you're fueling an addiction through those feelings, as opposed to if you were feeling good, if you're feeling joyful to start your workout, if you're feeling inspired, that is the difference between something that is pleasurable and something that we use as a form of avoiding our issues, of addicted. When you have an addiction, sometimes it becomes more powerful than you. Sometimes it's stronger than you, and it pushes you and controls you almost into doing set activities or set substances, whatever it is. If it's controlling you into unconscious behavior, like impulse, then do it, then in a way, it's an addiction because it's controlling you. An addiction will push you into a state of unconsciousness so that it repeats its behavior without you knowing it, or with or without you knowing it. So if you are in charge, if you're in control of an activity, if you are choosing to do this out of a certain positive behavior, and it's not doing it for you, basically, that is another sign of whether something is an addiction for you or if you're casually doing it for pleasure. Now, another thing is our relationship to our addiction, because more than anything, our relationship to ourself and to our addiction is what fuels something that can become an out of control behavior or escape for us. If you're not feeling great about yourself, if you don't love yourself and your relationship to yourself is less than optimal, if you don't feel confident, or you're doing things because you're not happy with where you are or whatever it is, and you turn to this substance, this activity, or this whatever as a form of dealing with your relationship to yourself, of ignoring it, of avoiding it, then in definite sense, it's an addiction. Your relationship to the actual substance, if you think about it and it doesn't bring positive feelings and you feel shame or you feel whatever, that is pointing you to the straight fact that you might be using this as a form of gateway to deal with your feelings and deal with your sense of self. So to determine whether you want something, because addictions can very much be cured. They can be overcome. You can change your relationship to the substance or to the activity. And more importantly, you can change your relationship to yourself. And that will fuel a totally different dynamic than if you were to feel like shit about yourself, hate yourself, and then do something to cope with it. You know what I mean? So that's another big point. And yeah, which again, it will point you in the straight direction of the reason why you do it and the reason why you started. If you can ask yourself those two questions. Why did I start doing this? I might have started doing it as a simple pleasure, but the reason I continue to do it, and I do it so compulsively or I do it so often, those reasons will tell you exactly, to the straight fact, why you're doing it. And that will help you distinguish whether you're addicted to something or you're using it for more negative reasons than if you were to use it for a positive, pleasurable, and joyful experience. So the several different points of determining whether you're addicted to something or you're doing it for plain pleasure is whether it's positively or negatively charged, how you feel when you're doing it, how often you do it, if it's running you or if you have mastered or you can control it, your relationship to yourself, your relationship to this substance or activity, the reason you started, and then the reason you do it. And when you can ask yourself and answer those questions honestly, you are 10 times closer to finding out why you're doing it and how you can change the way you see each of these activities. So I hope this was a really helpful, I got 10 seconds. I hope this was really helpful for you guys. I hope you come back to my channel. I love you all so much. 4, 3, 2, 1. Thanks, guys.